says, let me know that's there. It goes. It has now started. As usual, we ask any applicants that are not currently engaging in dialogue to mute their lines. This will help everyone hear over the inevitable background noises. To ease the recording of our votes, I will poll board members individually. I also expect that we will go into executive session tonight, and we will do that by going into a Zoom breakout room, and then we will return and complete the meeting. So with that, I was going to say let's get started, but I think I should probably wait for Jerome so that we do have a quorum to actually work on anything. But I can do the setup, I think. So the first item on our agenda is a site development plan review. This is calendar number 04-21PB, calendar number 42-21WP, and calendar number 08-21SW, 397 Smith Ridge Road, LLC, which is located at 397 Smith Ridge Road in South Salem. This is an application for an addition to an existing self-storage facility.
And Jan, can we just hold just to see if Jerome will plug in? I think it would be helpful
yes.
if we could get him. Yeah.
That's what I was just going to ask. I think
he was called. He's about to join us on the Zoom.
Good. Thank you.
We can talk about what a nice guy he is until he gets here.
Of course, that'll take us hours. So one of the reasons I was thrilled to have the board actually appoint another member is because of this. But it makes it easier when we have 5 members on, but I certainly understand that it's hard to go from the day you're appointed to be ready to be on a session. So Jerome is joining us now. Say hi, Jerome, when your audio is connected. There you are.
I'm here. I'm sorry,
Yay.
folks. My apologies.
Oh, no problem. So who is going to start talking for 397 Smith Ridge Road? Alan, okay.
So good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Board. I'm here actually, maybe what I could do is share screen.
You may.
If I were to do that, hopefully I can do that.
Yes.
Okay, is it visible now?
It is.
Excellent. So I'm actually here to describe the project. As you know, the existing project consists of, there are 2 buildings on this property, one of which is about 4,562.5 square feet, the other 2,150 square feet. And the proposal is to add 2 additional buildings. Building number 3, which is 1,500 square feet, and both in the rear of the site. And building number 4, which is 1,346 square feet. And I'll just sort of go over some of the modifications to the plan, because what I can do is sort of switch, if you will, to the prior plan, just so you can sort of see the changes. One thing that we did on this plan was to reduce the amount of new space that is being proposed. In this former plan, there was 3,350 square feet. The new one is 2,846 square feet. So a reduction of 504 square feet. And one of the things we did too was bring the buildings forward so it's further away from the wetland, which is in the off-site in the rear of the property. The 100-foot it's a state wetland, 100-foot buffer extends into the rear yard of the property, and the town wetland buffer runs through, I'll call it in the mid to rear portion of the property. So one of the things that was eliminated, there was previously an addition to building number 1. That's been eliminated. And really what we're using that space for is essentially stormwater management and for snow storage. And these 2 buildings have been modified. They're slightly smaller than what was there previously, and they were moved forward. So as I say, they're further from the rear property line by about 6.5 feet. And they're also further away from the wetland as a result. And so with these changes, the building coverage on the site was reduced to 9,558.5 square feet. A variance will be needed for building coverage, as we noted previously, but the variance will be smaller, amounting to 3.53% instead of 4.76%. But it's still in excess of the 20% coverage that is permitted. I'll just say the new buildings were designed to work with the existing drainage system to the maximum extent we could. There's an existing subsurface system, Caltech chambers, which was installed, I'll just say, in the old plan. I can even show you the final old as-built. That's not showing very well here. But with the new building being placed right up against the existing curb line, which is what we've done, it will actually eliminate one of the rows of chambers that's along here, and it will be mitigated by, I'll just change the screen, by constructing 12 new chambers. So we're eliminating 11 and bringing in 12 new chambers to the adjacent to building number 1 and building number 3. And as I pointed out before as well, there are 2 snow storage areas that are being provided. One which is located between building 1 and building number 3 through a gate, and one through the, I'll just say an access way at the south end of building number 4. And finally, I'll just also point out, there was a detailed mitigation plan as well that was submitted, which was requested. And this mitigation plan includes a lot of, I'll say, removal of a lot of the invasives, which have taken over much of the former mitigation area back here. And what we're doing basically is providing a clean slate and planting a lot of new native trees and shrubs in the rear portion of the property. And with the provision of gates and access, at the south end of building number 4 and at the north end of building number 3, there will be an opportunity to provide maintenance of this area. And that's really the modifications to the plans. So in addition, just in summary, so there is a new planted mitigation area, as you can see, and there is a reduction in the amount of new building space that is being proposed. But still, I think the site works well with its new arrangement. So with that, I'll let it, I'll stop screen share for a moment and then turn it back over to you.
Great. So let me just ask one thing to make sure I'm clear. It sounded as if you're using the old mitigation area that was done for the prior mitigation, and you're using it and it counted then, and you're using that same area again to count for this new mitigation. Is that correct?
That's largely correct. I mean, it's been extended a little bit more than what was there previously, but it does encompass the former mitigation area as well.
And even counting that, you're short of required mitigation.
That is correct. I'll just say when I was out there, and Beth Evans, who's also here, was out there, and we both observed this slope here, which we were hoping to try to include in some form of mitigation. Truthfully, it is really so steep and so rugged that to be able to provide, a landscape, for a landscape crew to really be able to access it, it's very difficult. It really is. And I just think, and because of the steepness of the slope, that it'd be very difficult to establish any plants there. After we sort of reviewed it again, that was our observation, that it'd be very, very difficult to do. So I guess one of the questions we have, is there any other options with the town in a situation like this where there are physical constraints on a property of, I'll say, proximity to a state wetland, of extreme slope? I mean, this slope back here, this area back, let me re-share. I think it'll be easier if I do that. Sorry. The steep area back here that I'm referring to is really, it's very difficult to access, and to plant on it would be very difficult. The upper area of this property is really just an old, however it was done, it was fill that was placed there years ago. That's what created it. And they just sort of left this very steep slope here. And we looked at it to try to see whether or not we might be able to plant it, and then maintain it. That's where we thought it was going to be very, very difficult to accomplish that. And so there are physical constraints on this property which make meeting this, the mitigation requirement, I'll say, really feasible. I mean, there is access through the two gates that are provided here and here to access and, and maintain the mitigation area in the rear of the property. But this area is just so steep, we just felt it was not practical. And I don't know if Beth wants to discuss that too, but I'm just saying that was our impression of it.
Alan, hi, it's Dave Sessions. If I can interject, I think as and correct me if I'm wrong, but as part of the original approval and the original project, there was mitigation required. I even think that there was some off-site mitigation that was supposed to be done. The mitigation was done, the planting was done on site, but as you know, it was never, the monitoring reports were never prepared and submitted, and the maintenance never happened on the site. So, that was obviously a bust on the owners, as far as the owner was concerned. We're coming in now with additional development and additional coverage and additional disturbance to the wetland buffer. And we're about 25 or 2,600 square feet short in mitigation. Look, this is just my opinion. I'm not a member of the board, but somehow this needs to be mitigated. And you might need to start thinking about going off site again. Again, initially the monitoring and the maintenance and the reporting was never done. That was on the owner. And now we're asking for more and asking for relief of the mitigation. So we'll leave it up to the board as to how they feel or how the board feels. But I think you need to consider some off-site mitigation if, in fact, on-site mitigation is not possible. And I don't disagree with you. That slope is unreasonably steep, and I really don't think that anything can be done there. I think you need to consider some off-site mitigation as you did originally.
If I may just interject, my recollection certainly is that there was on-site mitigation only. There wasn't off-site mitigation. However, it definitely was not maintained.
And if I could just interject, is it all right, Janet? If I just, when we went back to look at this site, obviously the idea was we were going to use the whole property for mitigation, but as Alan said, this appears to be very old stable fill material. There are hunks of concrete on that steep slope. It's not really suitable for a planted area. We looked offsite further down at the base of the slope, but the problem there, even if the owner were to be able to work out some sort of a use agreement with that property owner, getting to that back area is nearly impossible. So I think we concur with Dave's assessment that in this situation, given the constraints, offsite mitigation would be the obvious option.
Could you stop
Okay, thank you.
sharing?
Yep. I think that maybe it wasn't the original, 2012 approval that had offsite, but I think a prior submission had some offsite.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
I think if-
Jan. You're right.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, but I do understand, we don't want to have you plant someplace that then you can't ever get to, and it really isn't effective mitigation. But
Well, and
I think-
I guess my concern would be that whatever site constraints limited mitigation in 2012 continue to, affect the ability to fully mitigate in 2021, and you have additional development proposed. So I think an offsite option has to be looked at.
Can I just make a point? I didn't want, I'm Steve Kaplan, my wife Ellen Fisher, we're the owners of the property at 397. I try to do everything correctly. I don't want you to conflate the fact that I just didn't understand and just didn't make it through my brain that I was supposed to make those reports every year. So that's totally on me, and I will not go down that alley again now that I understand that was just a big no. I'm sorry for that happened. We try to be good neighbors. I think we have been good neighbors. We're sought after by the community. That's why we would like to expand. Having said that, though, I wanted to ask about this something in 2012 about offsite mitigation. I don't recall anything about any offsite mitigation having been offered or asked. I think what we did with our original proposal, we owned the property for many years. I think we were the first ones to actually come in with the site plan for any work there. In my recollection is that there was no other mitigation that was asked for or even discussed.
Yeah, I think there might have been some confusion between
Yep.
the way old plan, meaning the 2012 plan, and the previous iteration of this current plan, which I thought did have some offsite mitigation. I see Jerome. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk about for a moment the purpose of mitigation. In my mind, it's not just a numbers game per se of that we're trying to accomplish. It's enhancing the wetland, and perhaps this wetland has been enhanced as far as it can go on this property. I mean, it's not a large piece of property. The only, as a planning board, I think there are two options. One is to say, if there's no way to mitigate on this property and no other property where there's access that would work, and it's the square footage addition that's causing this deficit, well, then we just deny it. But if it's good for business and the community needs it, and the property is stabilized and the wetland can't be improved in that area any further, then I would say that that would be the proposal that I would make, that the planning board realize that this mitigation. Now, I know Judd's going to say, well, yeah, but that's what the code says. It's got to be 1-to-1, and we don't want to set that precedent. So that takes me back to what Dave was saying and others about finding an offsite potential mitigation. Or is there something else that can be done with the state's approval to, like, for example, enhancing wildlife habitation there for whether it's nesting ducks, put up duck houses, for example. Is there running water there? Or, do something there that would enhance the utilization and the effectiveness of that wetland.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Jerome, and I think I appreciate the creativity and, you know, desire to figure out a way to get through this that you bring. I'm hesitant to go away from the one-to-one until we've and especially until we've at least explored a little. I mean, I think when the prior thing was done in, you know, the first set of buildings were done, they were pretty careful to keep everything sort of forward of the 150. I mean, it went over a little bit into that buffer line, but it was sort of all designed to the front of the property. And I'm wondering if it would be, you know, if you only put up one of the buildings and you use the other part as mitigation, if there is something else that could be done, so that first there's less square feet to mitigate and second, more area to mitigate. I think I'd have to look at that before, you know, or say find some offsite location before I'd be willing to go away from the one-to-one. I see Charlene, you're nodding. Go ahead.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And I think there are some other comments. So maybe, Dave, if you would be willing to go through the memo that we have on this, I think it would be helpful to make sure we're identifying all of, not in terrible detail, but, you know, identifying the general areas that we have to continue to look at.
Yeah, I won't go through every comment. I think that the comments are pretty clear. There are some stormwater, technical stormwater type issues that we wanted to work out, which we can work out with Alan, you know, offline. You know, the fire department is going to need to take a look at this, and I would suggest that maybe Alan, maybe you contact the building inspector you know, to maybe have the building inspector contact the fire department. I know that you had sent drawings, I believe, over to the fire department, but maybe go through the building inspector to get to the fire department. That's probably the best way to go, the quickest way to go. And the building inspector is going to need to identify each of the nonconformities that are being proposed, so that we have a clear idea, you have a clear idea as to what variances are going to be needed here. I know that the buildings, one example is the buildings are only about 7 feet apart. I believe that the code requires 10 feet apart. You know, that's one example. So maybe just contact the building department, talk to the fire department with respect to what they're going to be requiring. Again, I think stormwater, obviously we need a wetland permit. We mentioned snow storage before. I believe that there's a chain link fence up there. And I believe that you're showing your snow storage beyond the fencing. So, you know, something's going to have to be worked out there, whether or not the snow storage goes somewhere else or the fencing gets removed. Details such as that. It's all outlined in the memo, but I think those are the main points. We need site development approval. We need stormwater permit approval. As I mentioned, we need a wetland activity permit. A public hearing is going to be required for this. ZBA for building coverage and referral to ACARC as well. So those are kind of the main points. The mitigation was really a main issue, though, that really needs to be worked out.
Go ahead, Jerome. Thank you. I'm sorry. First, thank you, David.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerome.
Just a question, Alan or Steve. Have you looked at a cross section of the building parallel to the infiltrators? Because it seems to me that by the time you excavate, and to put a footing in, you're going to have to disturb another row. And I think that should be looked at and developed to show us how that's going to be footing would be put in alongside the existing infiltrator.
So,
I just could address that quickly. These buildings, because they're not heated or tempered or air conditioned even, they have no foundation. They are haunch around the perimeters. So we're only going, maybe a foot
Okay.
down all around the perimeters, and there's no interior piers
Okay.
because the span is so narrow. I would also like to mention another thing, because in the interest of cooperation and moving forward, I know that we initially had, I think, because I missed the last meeting and I apologize for that. We do have an alternate location for mitigation, and I'm not sure why we have dismissed it or maybe not mentioned it. So I'm bringing it up to bring things further along because the mitigation seems to be the largest issue. I have an arrangement, and maybe Alan can speak to this better than I, but the way I understand it, the arrangement is that in exchange for some consideration, I am able to get an easement from my neighbor between my rear property line and the actual brook that goes behind there for the deficit of the square footage that we need to make up. So even though we have this very steep incline that is difficult to maintain, which again is my fault because I should have tried, didn't realize I was responsible. There is a viable alternative that I'm ready to accept and let the board know that this is here and move on from this mitigation. Now, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Alan, that I said something that was not mentioned before, or maybe there was a reason that we didn't mention it, but I'm mentioning it now in the interest of moving the project along, because I'm hearing, for taking a few steps forward, and I just want to continue the forward motion and not, meet again on the same particular topic. And there was one other topic with regards to the gate for the snow removal area. I mean, my nice snow removal guy had no problem opening the gate and then pushing the snow where it needs to go and then locking the gate. From my perspective, it's a liability, insurance liability to leave that back area, which is extremely slopey, unattended. So my preference is to, as he does with other properties that he maintains, give him the key to the gate, lock, and let him open the gate, put the snow in, and then lock the gate when he leaves. Otherwise, there's an insurance liability, a very large insurance. People come sometimes with their dogs and just let their dogs run around inside there while they're doing their loading and unloading. And without a gate, the dog's going to run down into that hill, and then they're going to have people following them, and it's a dangerous slope. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. I think that one of the concerns that I had with the gates is even if someone's willing to do it, depending upon how much snow we get, unless I just, and maybe sort of explaining that in a note, because unless they can kind of pull the snow back, open the gates, then, or
It's sufficient.
I don't know which way the gates swing, how they get the snow away so you can so you can open the gate.
It's sufficiently steep that even if you go out there, you can't because you can't access it. But if you could look at the topo, you would see it's sufficiently steep that even if you dumped a lot of snow there, it would be below the bottom of the gate.
So do the gates open towards the back, or do they have to be?
They would open towards the back where there would be no snow initially. The plow would come, push the snow past the gate, it would fall down the steep slope, and then they would close the gate behind. It's
okay.
It's not
So
beyond the scope of the work that these guys.
It's a detail we'll work out.
Yeah, that helps me understand a little bit better, but I think it would be helpful to kind of understand that. I think the added, this offsite mitigation is exactly what we have been sort of saying is necessary, because there is a shortfall of mitigation. I think there are two steps. I mean, one, we really do need to work on that mitigation piece. So if there is at your neighbor at the behind the neighbor's activities. If there's mitigation area there, that would be good to see. It is sort of new news that we've heard from the building inspector. He's asked us to really ensure that he is involved with anything that goes to the fire department. So we could refer this to the building inspector again, if you think that at this point you'd like us to do that. I think we would be hesitant, however, to do much more until we, see what comes out of that.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
go
an
ahead,
observation very quickly. In terms of moving things forward, there's already a recognition that there are variances, at least one variance that's going to be required. The applicant has indicated that that's the case. We have revised plans. My suggestion, let's get the revised plans to the building inspector. He can review them and then give the applicant basically a laundry list of whatever issues or nonconformities exist that are going to require relief from the ZBA, so that we're not doing a piecemeal application to the ZBA. You'll need that determination from the building inspector to make that application. So I think let's get the revised plans to the building inspector, let him review it, let him work with the fire department in that regard, and then whatever the building inspector determines can then provide the platform to get the ZBA process going. And in the interim, I think an offline discussion between the applicant's consultants and Kellogg Sessions with regard to this additional mitigation area can move that process forward. It doesn't sound to me like that additional mitigation area would upset any of the the current plans in terms of building location and size and the rest. So that would be those are my thoughts.
that's great.
I would just
Go
like to add that actually Keller said and Jan have the wording of the easement. In fact, we submitted it to them. Maybe Mr. Sessions.
I have it. Yeah, I have it, Stephen, and it's why it's just sort of like this is why the latest plan it seemed like it was dropped. So we don't know where that stands.
Well, it's back.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't part of this current thing. Okay, yes, Jerome, go ahead.
Yeah, on the issue that the building inspector raised of the building separation, I was wondering if that passageway was roofed over, and if it was, would that be considered one building, which would not create that objection? It would be a passageway within the building, and it might be something to think about.
Okay, before we go further, I think, John, the CAC had a memo that came out just today. So I don't know whether that was forwarded to the applicant yet or not, but maybe if you want to, were there comments in there that you want to bring up that we didn't yet address?
Well, somebody raised the issue of and that we didn't really know. Was there any requirement of how much impervious percentage there has to be on a property? I mean, because this one is fairly substantial impervious thing, and that was the issue that was raised.
I think that would be something that would come up by sending it to the building inspector.
Okay.
So, and we can send to the building inspector by consensus. So I'd look for agreement from the board members to agree to send this to the building inspector, and also ask that he coordinate with the fire department in a review. So I guess thumbs up. Everybody okay with that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. So we have agreed to send that, to refer this to the building inspector, and ask that he also go to the fire department with it. I am pleased to hear that. I guess we just assumed when we didn't see the mitigation offsite again that it had gone away. And I think that would be helpful to see. So we'll do that. But so next time we can do that. But in the interim, I think getting the building inspector to look at this is the sensible next step, as Judd had suggested here. So is there anything else on this application that we should talk about at the moment? Okay, hearing none, I'll say thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is calendar number 10-21 PB. This is for Bluestone Lane, South Salem. It's a waiver of a site development plan procedures application for the construction of a single family house. This is a little bit unusual for us in that it's not really a true wetland or site development plan application. We had a condition tied to a resolution, and that's been changed. And so maybe actually, Jed, I'll ask you to sort of explain a little bit about why this is here.
Yeah, a little unusual, but the proposed residence is within a subdivision that was approved by the board. And that subdivision approval had as a condition and a note on the plat that there were certain building envelopes and building constraints on each lot that had to be observed. There were plans submitted with that subdivision approval, and the condition said if there was some alteration in the future, the development on a particular lot would have to come back to the board for approval. So this is really a product of a condition of a subdivision approval that requires this board to look at this particular development as compared to what was contemplated at the time of the subdivision approval, review it and give a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay, and I believe Paulette, are you on for this?
Yes, I am. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Members of the board. My name is Paulette Domofsky. I'm the architect for the owners who are Chaz and Gianna Palmentieri. And I think if I share my screen, I'll be able to just give you a visual of everything Judd just explained. See.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. So this is the subdivision. These are the 6 lots that were part of that earlier subdivision. And it just so happens that we happen to be the architect of all of the lots, except for this one, which was, the building was already there. But we did design and build these 3 lots and are currently building this one now. This is the one in question. This is for Bluestone Lane. And in this case, the restrictions for the contiguous building area were, while it's pretty expansive, it's about 66,000 square feet of area that you can build on, it gets very tight. And this is a good visual because this line is the contiguous building area where you have to build within. And you see how it narrows on each side. And, you know, trying to position this house in such a way where we take advantage of the topography, we take advantage of natural sunlight, the south versus the north, and then privacy for these owners, which is very important for them, for security and just privacy. They wanted to be a little further in their lot. It was very difficult to plan this house without impeding on that area. So as it turns out, this is the area in question. It's about 600 square feet, which is about 1% of the buildable area that we're looking for. And we did go to zoning for this, and they approved it. And now I think we're back to you because it was part of a previous resolution, and I think we have to formalize it with the planning board, I believe.
I think that's correct. Okay, so so I think what has happened, if I understand correctly, is that the house has kind of been shifted a little bit And because it squeezes there, you've had to go outside what had been defined as the contiguous building area, but that has been approved by the ZBA. So I think I think this is now up to us to just basically say, yes, we think this is okay, or, no, we don't. And I don't think there's too much more. I do want to ask, it looks that this isn't even something I think we as a board can discuss, but I'm looking at, it appears that there's quite a bit of driveway area in the whole front there. Is that pretty much what's, yes, if you zoom in a little. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to show you, I don't know if I have to reshare my screen. Can you see the color rendering right now?
No.
Okay, just give me a minute to do a new share.
Okay.
This is a little clearer maybe. So this is the house and this is the garage. This is that line that we're impeding on, and the pool we can, it's just building that we can't.
Right.
So the driveway is a long driveway, and they wanted it to be a little meandering, again, so that you can't see down the driveway, just for privacy. And then you would come around this way. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you go into the garages this way. It's a 3-car garage.
Mhm.
They didn't want the garage up front. They wanted it tucked away in the back for a couple of reasons. One, for a little more security, to have, their driveway
Okay.
not accessible. And also, to maximize the views. Part of why they bought this property was because they have the natural preserve behind them. And one of Chaz's office is going to be above the garage. So he really wanted to take advantage of that and have that more towards the back of the house. So given the program, given what, they were hoping to achieve here, it just was very difficult to fit within this very narrow, it's very narrow here. If we moved it closer, again, we'd be a lot closer to the street and closer to the neighbors. And if we moved it back, we'd have a topography issue, because it really, as you come back, then you can't fit the pool, and it just becomes, we have another limit line here that we have to stay within. So we were really pushed into this corner, and we felt that this really was the least invasive into that area that we have
Yep.
to stay away from. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, okay, the color does help. I just, between some of the big rains and snows we have here, I'm sure you're gonna be thinking about how to handle all the that surface area that you have to collect
Yes,
rain and the snow from. Okay.
Yes, the Palmetiers have retained Hudson Engineering to do all the civil engineering for this, and they will be taking care of just all the stormwater management.
Great. Yeah, that color visual really does help. Thank you. Okay. So are there any comments, Jerome, Charlene, on this that you have?
I have a comment. Charlene, why don't you go first and I'll follow.
I was just wondering if there were any objections at the zoning board, and were the neighbors informed of the change?
Yes, actually, most of the neighbors were there in support of it, and I think it was unanimously voted on. I can't recall for sure, but it was approved, and I think it was obviously a majority, but I think it was unanimous.
The board has a copy of the resolution. It was adopted at the November 17th meeting, I believe, of the ZBA, and it was a unanimous decision, 5-0.
Yeah, Janet?
Yes, Jerome.
Yeah, I have to say that what I'm hearing, I have absolutely no objection to this. The rationale, is sound, the reasons for it, and I don't know how it was placed on the site initially, but that was just nothing was carved in stone. And I think that as long as there's no encroachment on zoning envelope and there's no objection from the neighbors, I think it's perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thank you for Charlene for ferreting out what the neighbors thought, and I think that is helpful information. So I don't know, Charlene, do you have any more questions, or would you be okay with this?
I'd be fine with it. I'll make the motion if you want.
Well, I think, let's see, I think, so I am going to ask you, Paulette, if you would stop screen sharing so we can see everybody a little bit more. Thank you. And then I think what we want to do is ask for a resolution to be prepared. I think that's the right thing to do for our next meeting. And I don't believe we need a motion to ask for the resolution. We will just need a motion once we get the resolution and try to approve it. So if Jerome, Charlene, and me all kind of thumbs up on the asking for resolution. Okay, so that's the work to be done for the next meeting. I hope that is okay. Paulette, do you have any other requests of us before?
Well, I guess I just wonder, so what's the next step for us, the applicant? Do we come to the next meeting? Is it a public hearing, or
No.
do we need to present again?
No.
There's
So-
no public hearing required.
No.
Right.
Okay.
So what we will do at the next public hearing is discuss the resolution, and I would expect that barring any surprises that are unexpected in the resolution, we would approve it. So if you would like to be there to hear the resolution, certainly, and any discussion that happens, that's, but I would expect it to be a relatively brief conversation.
And that meeting is
Okay.
February 15th.
February 15th? Okay, and then if it's approved, then we proceed with our submission to the building department for a permit and all that's required with that.
I believe so. I
Yeah.
think you just go to get a building permit because you will have gotten through the ZBA, you've gotten through us. Unless something unexpected comes up.
I think and I'm sure your engineer is aware of this, but Westchester County Health Department still needs to approve the well and the septic system.
Yes.
For this.
Good. Mhm. Right,
And
which is what
the
we have
building
to do for the
department,
Right.
prior to the building department signing off on any building permit, they will need to see the approval from the county health department. So
Right.
that's your
But it's not,
critical.
Okay.
it's not coming back to us though after the resolution is revised.
Right.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you
So
very
I think,
much.
yeah, so I think you can work with the Department of Health, in parallel. You don't need, I don't think you need the resolution to get to that far, but we'll see. Okay,
Well, thank you very much.
thank you. And perhaps we'll see you next month, but in any case, we will discuss the resolution next month. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is calendar number 01-21 WV. This is Maple Tree Farm, 400 Smith Ridge Road, South Salem. This is a wetland violation that I think has been discussed, and Brian is here to talk about it. I guess is this, I turn this over to Judd maybe to explain, or Dave?
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
And Dave can chime in if he needs to, but this is a wetland violation that was issued by the wetland inspector, issued by Jan, issued in October of 2021. It relates to site activity that was conducted at a property located at 400 Smith Ridge Road. This property, just for the board's reference, is was once a portion of the Pound Ridge Stone property. And there was some tree removal. There was a gravel pad placed on the property in conjunction with a business that Mr. Cooney is now operating. It was done within the buffer and without a permit, without the benefit of a permit. The violation was issued, originally noticed for the October meeting, carried over to the November meeting, and Jan and I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Cooney on November 24th. And our understanding, confirmed with Jan today, is that Brian is working with consultants to prepare a wetland permit with regard to the work that was done, so that restoration work can be accomplished. There may, and I don't want to put words in Brian's mouth, there may be some additional work that he's seeking to do on the property in the future in terms of some improvements and the like. Whether that gets folded into the wetland permit that would be submitted to the board, as part of the restoration project remains to be seen. But in any event, our understanding is that the property owner is moving forward.
Okay, Brian, so I guess that's a question for you, and perhaps you could tell us where you stand on this.
Well, Jan was able to come out and meet with me and walk the property, I believe about a month ago. I thought I was going to be on the last meeting, so I was just kind of waiting to hear from you guys, and I was going to reach out, and Jan had spoken to me about getting a whole mitigation plan in place, and that's basically what I'm going to start working on. I'm, just slowing down in the season, and so I think he spoke to me about Bibbo or something, and I'm just coming up with a whole plan for the property. And he said, there wasn't much, there was some topsoil to bring in, he said, and some plants, and kind of went over what I needed to do. So that's my next step, is to contact Bibbo or someone like that, and start working on the plan for the property, and also working on a plan for the building as well.
Great. Okay. I think if you, it's up to you, but if you want to get going on just them in pieces, you can, or if you want to do them all together, you can as well. Judd, do we need to get a plea?
So I spoke to Mr. Cooney when we spoke in November, and obviously the decision is his, but I advised him that he's free to plead guilty or not guilty to the violation, that the way the board normally proceeds in the event of a guilty plea is guilty pleas entered, obviously in anticipation of application for a wetland permit to do work on the property for restoration. And so, I just asked Brian if you're prepared to do that tonight.
Yes. Yeah, the main thing was I just really wanted to, go over everything with Jan and see what was this. I just didn't understand the process much.
Right. Understood.
So Jan really helped me understand, and he said to, explain everything, and it all seems extremely reasonable and fair, and, not too bad of a process. So yes, I would like to plead guilty to violation and continue moving forward with the wetland permits and the remediation and mitigation and whatever I need to move forward with.
Okay, so you do feel, first of all, thank you for moving forward, the desire to move forward. And do you understand now sort of the next steps, or should we?
I do. Jan was pretty specific, and I took pretty good notes.
Great.
So, and he really helped with the whole process, and it was great to just meet with him and walk the property. So yeah, I guess the first step right now is to pull a wetland permit and then
Yeah,
work
so
on the plan.
I guess my recommendation is kind of twofold. First is to the board. I think maybe the best step tonight for the board is to carry this over to either the April or May meeting, just for control. And Brian, that simply means it would be on the agenda of either of those meetings for you to come back to kind of check in.
Okay.
And then in the interim, for you to confer with Jan with regard to getting the wetland permit application moving forward.
Okay.
And how that's done is up to you. It seems to me that, well, I don't know how, I don't know how involved the overall plan for development of the site is envisioned at this point. And maybe it makes sense for it to roll everything into one application if you're ready to, to do that all at once. But
Okay.
even if it were simply an application to get the restoration work done that Jan spoke to you about, that application could get in, and I can't speak for the board, but potentially could be relegated to Jan to address in administrative capacity, meaning you wouldn't have to be coming back to the board over and over again for that permit until it's completed.
Okay.
So, but that's a discussion to have with Jan directly.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. I think overall, I would like, if I had more time, like you said, until April or May, it gives me a lot of time to work on maybe doing the overall plan. So I'm not submitting, because I would like to restore the building and, not really move anything, whatever the existing structure is where I'd want to, fix and rebuild. So it's not much, but at least gives me time to work with, some architects and engineers and kind of come up with a plan for the whole property.
Sure.
Okay, so I think that does make sense to me. Maybe we'll put it on follow-up for May, which I'm looking to see what date that would be. I think it's May 17th. And Dave, do you have anything to add before we just?
So what's the cutoff date for submission?
The cutoff date for submission is, would this be new or a resubmission?
It would be new.
Okay, so that would be April 12th. So Dave, if I'm doing that right, Kirsten will let me know if I'm wrong. April 12th, and so you'd be on the agenda for May. So that's really, the deadline is kind of April, even though we're saying the May meeting.
But yeah, I would just keep it on the May meeting just for control so
Yep.
that we can report in.
I don't have anything to add, Jan.
Thank you so much. I just didn't want to be rolling right past and miss
Yep.
anything to add.
No.
All right, so this sounds good. I think, Brian, I'm delighted that in addition to kind of, planting out the area a little bit, you're actually looking at dealing with that building. It's probably a longer, more complex thing, but I think, for the town, it's a good thing as well as I hope for you. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Okay, I think we'll see you in May. And I'm sure Jan will be talking to you before that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. So the next item on our agenda is a discussion item, and it's the 2020 fee schedule. So I had gotten a letter from Janet Donahue that asked, do we want to change any of the fee schedule? And this was interesting to me in that I didn't realize we could. Obviously, we don't do it directly, but we recommend to the town board. And as I looked at things that Kirsten spends time on that we don't really have any fee for, the extension of time application or, the extension of time process that we go through here does not have a fee. And this is one of the places where maybe having a fee to cover Kirsten's costs would align with, our desire to see people move forward rather than drag things out. So it seemed like it might be a benefit. So I wanted to talk to you about that. I did know, I asked John if he knew of any, and he did say one, and Kirsten has shared around the North Castle one, which I think starts at $200 and then goes up by $100. I'm not sure we should do that, but $200 is kind of in line with a lot of the other permits that come, and I think it recognizes that Kirsten reaches out to people, reminds them that time is due, gets the letters, puts it on the agenda, sends out the extension of time documentation. So I wanted to bring it up. I mean, I hate to charge more fees that aren't necessary to the people. We could say, well, maybe the first 1 or 2 are free and then you have to pay or something, but I just wanted to bring it up for discussion and see what you guys thought. Go ahead, Charlene.
I think it's actually a very good idea because the extensions from the short time of period I've been on the board, we give out fairly freely. And some of these things seem to have been going on for years and years and years. So I think that would be maybe a little push, and obviously would cover the administrative fees that we incur. So I'd go for it. Maybe the first extension, nothing, and on the second, then start. And maybe even increased.
Okay. Jerome, what do you think?
Yeah, in general, I agree with what Charlene said. I don't think that $200 is going to push a project like, let's say, Silvermine, 13 unit subdivision. It's not going to move them along. Maybe a single family or a smaller project, but increase incrementally. It's hard to say, and maybe should the fee be based on a percentage of the estimated cost of the project, or but I think $200 is not a large sum. I mean, that covers our cost. So I would say I would vote for first one is pro bono, is free, and then subsequently 200, and then it doubles each one.
Then it doubles each time?
Yeah, go to 400 and 800. I mean,
okay.
Unless there's a reason why, like a pandemic or some other kind of apocalypse.
So maybe you would suggest that the planning board be able to waive this in case of a hardship situation?
Yeah, I'd be careful about something that aggressive. I think you really need to tie the fee to the administrative cost and the cost borne by the town. Now, does that mean it shouldn't kick up a little bit? Maybe it kicks up, another $100, and then you hold it there. But to have a doubling or to have this succession of increase when the administrative costs are going to remain fairly in check, I would advise against doing that.
Okay, I think the North Castle one goes up 100 to a cap of 1,000. But I just think, my major reason is to make sure we recover the administrative costs, which we really do incur. It is a part of the agenda, it's a part of the phone calls, it's a part of the mailing.
Absolutely. And if I could chime in, Jen, you know, obviously we
Please.
consulted the town of North Castle as well. So I know nobody asked for my opinion, but I'll give it
Please.
anyway
Yeah.
for what it's worth. I don't think the first one should be free. You know, I mean,
Dave, I agree
$200,
with you. Yeah.
$200 doesn't even
Okay,
cover.
that's good with me.
$200 is about, you know, what, Judd, 5% of your billable rate for an hour? I'm kidding. But no, really, I mean, when you know, it's the cost of doing business. And if somebody is before the board for a proposal, before a planning board or something, look, they're making improvements to their house. They've got some dollars to spend. Why shouldn't the town? Kirsten does not and should not come cheap, right? I mean, really, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, I don't want to sound too harsh here, but I think the first one being free is not appropriate.
I withdraw my suggestion. And why don't we just do what North Castle does? I mean, obviously it's been instead there, and I don't think they've gotten sued on it.
So, okay, so what I guess I'd look for is a motion for me to write a letter to the town board recommending that they implement a fee for an extension of time, the first one to be 200, going up by 100 at each subsequent extension to a cap of 1,000.
That's fine by me.
Is that a motion? Oh, okay, Jerome.
No, well, I'll make the motion. I want to discuss it.
Okay. So Charlene, are you seconding?
I'm seconding, yes.
Okay. Jerome,
So,
discuss.
Are there any exceptions made in Newcastle? For example, pandemic, health department, skeleton crew, they have to get extensions because of third-party approval, unless
No,
we can give an approval with conditions.
not that I'm aware of. And again, we're talking about $100. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't want to.
Well, I understand.
Judd, would it be possible for us to waive it as we waive anything and not have to put it in the law particularly?
No, I think once it's a town board decision. If the town
Right.
board adopts it as a fee, then it's, you know,
It's just the fee.
It's the fee.
And
Yeah.
we have no.
You have no
ability.
authority. Yeah.
But I mean, I do think, let's say, and you know, there's an Article 78 that drags on for a year, you know, is that fair to charge? So maybe could we?
Doesn't that stop?
Hold it there, because
as a matter
I
of
think the
law?
only reason it'd be in Article 78 is if we approved something.
I'm sorry?
And I think what would trigger in Article 78 if we approved something and somebody felt we shouldn't have.
Yeah, but they'll be coming back to you for extensions in light of the fact that.
Oh.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be held in abeyance as a matter of law under the Article 78?
It depends on the approval. Subdivision approval, yes, but not all approvals.
Right. So maybe, I mean, well, I would say, why don't we try it? We don't know if the board will put it in. Let's just keep it relatively simple, since it sounds like that's what North Castle has done. So we'll write a letter. So the motion is to write this letter suggesting to the town board that they implement this in recognition of the cost, trying to recoup some of the costs of doing business, and, you know, following the model done by another Westchester town. So I think that's the motion. Any more discussion? Okay, I'll poll the board. Charlene?
Aye.
Jerome?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so I will write the letter, which guess what? That means really Kirsten and I, mostly Kirsten will write the letter. Okay, thank you. We also have the minutes of December 21st, 2021.
I move they be approved as submitted.
Second,
Okay, I will say, I think there's one small, we learned recently about how to spell the name of the person from the Department of Health. And that's going to be updated in there to correctly spell it. But otherwise, I think the minutes are ready to go. So with that small amendment, I will poll the board. Charlene,
aye.
Jerome,
Aye.
and I say aye, so the minutes are approved. Okay. I move to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment of a firm in response to the town-issued RFP for comprehensive plan services, and to appoint Judge Siebert for the purpose of taking minutes at this executive session. So I've made a motion.
I seconded.
Okay. Any discussion about this? Okay, I guess I'll pull the board. Charlene,
Aye.
Jerome,
Aye.
and I also say aye. So we will try to go into executive session now. So
Are we closing the meeting or are we going to come back to the main room?
we will have to come back to the main room.
So am I co-host? I'll make the breakout room.
I think we have them. I'm just not quite sure how to get there.
Oh, well, you click on breakout and it'll just say, if you want to name the participants instead of going in that breakout room, you just have to click on those on the
Yeah, I
participants.
just made Jerome a co-host as well, since he knows how to do this.
Okay, so I see breakout rooms.
Okay,
And
so
we say open all rooms, and I think all of these
So-
people.
well, yeah, everybody in there is coming, right?
I didn't put
I-
Dave.
I won't be attending.
No, you're not in that. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, thank you so much for stepping in. I do really appreciate it, especially at
Sure.
last minute. It's wonderful.
My
It was good
pleasure.
to see you.
It's good seeing you. Nice meeting you, Charlene.
Take
Same
care,
here.
Dave.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So now what you have to do is what? Join somehow? We just lost Jerome. He got in. He got into the executive session.
And he's gonna have it by himself, it seems.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just me that's not in. Oh, I think I hit join.
Okay, have a good executive session.
Hi, we're back. And I think everybody might have to unmute themselves. Because I see that we are, we were all muted. Okay, we're back. So I think we have come out of executive session. Do I say
8:48,
by a motion by whom, or are we okay?
No, we're okay. Yeah.
I think we lost Judd.
I'm here.
So we've come back out. And I see everyone is frozen. I don't know whether it's my system or
Your system.
not.
It's your system. It's your system, Janet.
I just feel frozen.
So can I make a motion to adjourn?
I second it.
Do we lose Janet?
She's frozen.
Okay.
All right, I still see everything is frozen, so I'm gonna
No.
leave and then
Nope,
try to
you're
come
back.
back.
Hey, you're back.
You're good
Not
now.
back.
You're good now.
She doesn't hear us though. While we're waiting for her to come back, Kirsten, number 2, Bowden Road.
Yep. Okay, all in favor?
Motion.
Aye.
Oh, aye.
Yes, you've,
Yeah. Could we stop recording and close the meeting?